What's going on, guys? Tobin here with you. Thanks for checking us on out. I got a new Porpoise pod out. You guys, if you could go subscribe to that podcast, download the episodes, I would appreciate that support there. We'll be much more active this week on this channel, adjusting to the new time slot. A lot of things up in the air. I had to fill in some projects over at the station. So plan on being a lot busier over here, and always appreciate you guys' support. So, Tua Tagovailoa, the investigation is over with the NFL Players Association. The Miami Dolphins, turned out they didn't do anything wrong. Crazy, isn't it? You know, all this talk, all the pitchforks that were out. The Miami Dolphins did not do anything evil in regards to Tua Tagovailoa. From the Miami Herald, the review found that Tua Tagovailoa sustained a reported back and ankle injury during the game. Tua Tagovailoa told the medical staff that he aggravated his back injury when he was shoved by Matt Milano and hit his head on the ground. According to the review, the play in which he was suspected of sustaining a concussion, Tagovailoa grabbed his helmet, stumbled up after adding more suspicion that he may have sustained a head injury. Tagovailoa did not report or exhibit any symptoms of a concussion during his examination in the locker room, during the remainder of the game, or throughout the following week, the review found. When asked whether, under a new protocols, Tagovailoa would have been able to play 4 days later against the Cincinnati Bengals, the NFL's doctor in this new thing said, there are no finite timetables for a return after the concussion and diagnosis, but it would have been extremely unlikely, he said, for the median time for a player to have a concussion off is 9 days. And so we'll get into what they have added to this, but the main part of this is this whole thing, which I'm no doctor, ataxia, which is, you know, a big time imbalance and loss of your motor skills. That is now going to be a big thing going forward, where they will really be heeding caution on keeping players out if that symptom is shown. But under the terms that the Dolphins have, you know, were given this past week, or actually 2 weeks ago on the week 3 game against the Bills, the Dolphins followed all protocols. And so all the pitchforks that were out there for everybody and everybody who was here trying to make it seem like the Dolphins did something evil, they did not. They did not try and send Tua out there in, knowing that he was still hurt or anything like that, or that he had a concussion. He showed no concussion symptoms. Now they have added new stipulations to it. Okay, look, if you go through something and you have learned something because maybe an injury occurred or a symptom occurred that you maybe didn't realize could have happened, or didn't realize that this was going to be the case, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with the league doing that, whatever you guys want to do to go protect the players. I do think, though, that I think the energy should be the same at the Miami Dolphins, as far as everybody needs to calm down with how they were treating Mike McDaniel, especially these wackos like Chris Nowinski, who's saying he should be, sued and Tua should never play for the Dolphins again in his career. The Dolphins did nothing wrong here. And you could kind of tell as soon as the Players Association added the whole parameters of they wanted to add back to the head injury thing here with Tua. What you could argue for the Dolphins, and where they probably erred here with Tua, is siding with him so much to push to play on 3 days' notice after that back injury. Back injury, head injury. He clearly didn't look physically right in that game. But that is a dance that coaches and players are going to go with, especially a rookie head coach who has a good relationship with his player, who the last go around with his coach did not see eye to eye on when he should play, when he could physically be able to go. And so, yeah, maybe that did add to the idea of putting him out against the Cincinnati Bengals, not at 100%. It was, tremendously scary to see what happened to him. But under what was investigated here, and as far as, whether or not the Miami Dolphins were doing anything evil or trying to cover up anything, or were trying to make it seem like Tua wasn't hurt at all, listen, Mike McDaniel was right. They had nothing to hide, and they were completely transparent. They said that Monday on the game leading up to the Bengals game. He said that his back was jacked up, his ankle was hurt. Tua said that. Tua had the ice pack. He said that his back felt like Gumby. Mike McDaniel said that Tua called him, said that he was going to push to really play. Tua said that he really wanted to push to play. Should they have been more cautious with him? I mean, look, hindsight being 2020, obviously, he probably shouldn't have been out there playing. He wasn't all the way back, and probably wasn't in a dangerous position with his back, with, obviously putting his head in that spot, and didn't look like, the same quarterback that we had seen through the first 3 games of that season. But, we're talking about 2 different levels of things here. That whether or not the Miami Dolphins did anything wrong in the situation to harm their player. And, I think that for them, I hope that, people, come at it with this whole idea that, Mike McDaniel, who seems like a genuinely good dude and was very emotionally hurt by Tua getting stretchered off the field, and everybody basically saying that this guy didn't care about his player. I really do hope that there's that the apology is the same as the outrage when it comes to this thing. It's an awful thing what happened to Tua. Is worst case scenario. But in football, these guys are pushing through a lot all the time that we never know about or never consider. And I think that, the worst thing out of all of this, and I think we've seen this with this trash that happens every Thursday night, it's not going to happen because, Lex Luthor paid, what is it, $80 million a year to get these damn Thursday night football games, but that's a trash product and it's bad for the health of the players. So if they really cared about it and they really wanted to get after somebody here, they probably should consider not having football games on 3 days' notice, all right? Pitchers don't pitch on 3 days' notice. Perhaps football players shouldn't crash into each other on 3 days' notice. I'm just saying, if we're going to talk about change of protocols here, which is a great thing, good that they're going to be more cautious, good that they're going to cast a wider net so that they will be more cautious with players and all of that stuff, great. I'm all for that, but I do think that what I am, I do still hope, and you're still going to have people who are pissed at the Dolphins thinking that they should have known and that they should have had a better idea. But, if you have a full review and Tua and everybody involved was investigated with this stuff, what are we doing here? We're gonna sit here still blaming the Dolphins for it like they did something wrong. You got to have the elements to this of a guy didn't have a concussion, didn't have any concussion symptoms, had a back injury, probably shouldn't have played with a back injury, but there aren't back protocols, or there weren't back protocols. And guys play, Jameis Winston played with fractures in his back this year. So it's unfortunate to see. And I thought that Barry Jackson made a good point. I don't know if he's the only one, but I saw him say this point with, the Dolphins have had Ethan Carter out 4 weeks. I think he got hurt. It was either week 1 or in the preseason with a concussion. So it's not like the Dolphins haven't been cautious with players who are dealing with this. But Tua Tagovailoa is a guy who really, I think, was pushing as much to play as possible because there's a lot riding for him this year, man, and durability has been a question for him. And so I just think that that's I really think that I hope that, people kind of give the Dolphins a break on this one and do apologize for all the outrage. I know it won't happen. That never happens in this social media day and age, but, it really should, because especially to Mike McDaniel, I think for him having to be up there, taking the hits, answering every question about this, telling you that he had nothing to hide. He did have nothing to hide. And this is the place that they're at. To me, one of the things that were like the most cause of this, one, the fact that, Tua did have a back injury, 2, that he really, really wanted to play, and 3, that there was a game in 3 days instead of 7, which is stupid. But, we won't review that. Let's just keep watching 9-6 games. It's awesome on Thursday night. Who doesn't love it? J.C. Tretter, who was in some Dolphins rumors, former NFL center, NFLPA president, he said, we do not believe this is a meaningful application of protocols. Nobody, including the NFL, believes that he should have been put back in that game. It is problematic that he was cleared of a back injury with for which the lead doctors never took time to examine. So what they said was, from JC's point, is that they took the examination from, he already had the back injury or was complaining about the back injury earlier in the game, and that they had just used that as a review point. And so now this will be something that's a review point. One of the things that is crazy about it, though, is he did go back in that game. It did perform well. This is not a guy who, remember, Tua didn't get a lot of snaps in that game because the Bills had the ball for 2/3 of the game, 3/4 of the game. And he goes out there and, chucks a bomb down to Jalen Waddle, and they end up winning the game. So was able to play through this back injury, even though he said that he was in a lot of pain during it. So, good. If what happened to Tua leads to them learning more from this, good. There's nothing wrong with getting a bigger blanket on this stuff and making sure that players are better taken care of and they have a better understanding of, you know what, if a guy clearly looks like he's hurt, even if it's, you know, all the symptoms are fine. If it's just an eyeball test to be extra safe, let's just go that route. You know, listen, this is done in fights are stopped like that based on just an eye test. You know, referees who are, you know, just commissioned, they look at guys' eyes and they'll tell a guy he can't continue. According to Pro Football Talk, what they read is, as reported Sunday, the union intended to ask Tua the very question about his back. Did the doctors know about his back injury? Did they examine your back? They didn't. They just took his word for it. From the union's perspective, that shows a clear violation of protocol. It's unclear why the NFLPA would agree to a statement that potentially would create the impression that the protocol was followed. Per a source with knowledge of the situation, the union absolutely does not agree that protocol was followed, only that boxes were checked and that the meaningful examination was not provided for Tua. So I guess that's why they decided, you know, to fire the doctor, because they found that this was them just taking Tua's word for it was not substantial enough in their eyes. But, you know, clearly if you have to come out and you do have to change the protocol, and there is language there that they did feel like boxes were checked and that he wasn't thoroughly examined. Still, though, that is a doctor that league hired, not the Dolphins. And if they doctor who was in charge of it, not the Dolphins, asked the Dolphins staff, hey, did you check him for this? And they're like, yes. I don't know what is supposed to be done there. I mean, like, I have a feeling like this is not the first rodeo for all of these people. And, you know, people are looking for something damaging and looking for the smoking gun and looking for something that happened that seems not on the right level with it. I get it. But I think really what just happened is just a series of unfortunate events. And I think that the worst possible thing did happen, and that is ultimately Tua getting stretchered off a field. And thankfully had all of his, and when it happened, I mean, come on, like, you saw what happened to his body. You're thinking the worst. So it was certainly a scary sight. You know, I can only think that where the Dolphins really erred is probably having him out there that week. And that's just the idea. Even if his back was jacked up, maybe that wasn't a quick enough recovery for it. But as far as them ignoring concussion, which I think is what everybody here seems to think that they did, I think that clearly shows that wasn't the case. They weren't ignoring concussion symptoms. They probably, at best, could have been way better about being overly cautious with his back. But again, you have a player who wants to play, and I do think that is sometimes a tough thing to turn down, because these guys play through crazy crap all the time in this league. It's a brutal league. It's a brutal league. It's carnage out there. Every week somebody's playing through something nasty. I mean, you know, these guys have had 10 days off going into this Jets game, and there's still guys who aren't healthy from the last game they played against Cincinnati. So that's what we're talking about here. Guys who basically can't physically practice for the sport they play on Sundays during the week because they need to rest so much to get ready for everything they're going to go through on Sunday. And, you know, and all of this hope, Tua continues to have a speedy recovery, that as Dolphins, you want to see him go out there. And yeah, genuinely, you do want to see him go out there, continue his career, ball out, be awesome, because he was off to a fantastic start this season. You don't want this to be, you know, the final chapter on this year. I don't think Tua wants that either. I don't think Tua wants to leave the Dolphins, sue the Dolphins, have Dolphins personnel locked up for him in all of this. You know, Mike McDaniel's already been saying, like, he's already jonesing to get back out there.